Sports culture offers teachers numerous avenues for advancing social justice. Sports culture is ubiquitous, and we can invite students to critically examine it. That is, we can position them to consider issues of power, privilege, and marginalization at the intersections of sport and society, and to question the ways sports-related texts either uphold or upend the status quo. For example, in recent years, scholars have promoted critically analyzing media messages to challenge the framing of female athletes, whose style and appearance often get more attention than their athletic performance. Likewise, scholars have advanced critically examining how media frame the activism carried out by black athletes in ways that silence and subvert their fight for social justice. We can also use sports-related films to critically examine the white savior trope.
According to sociologist Hernan Vera and film critic Andrew Gordon, the white savior is defined as the redeemer of the weak, the great leader who saves blacks from slavery or oppression, rescues people of color from poverty and disease. Though this theme existed well before the 1960s, scholars have attributed its prevalence in film to an American post-civil rights climate in which African Americans were expected to attain racial equality and whites were expected to be colorblind. Specifically in film, narratives about white saviors have four characteristics. The first is although they often include African American characters and may seem to tell diverse stories, white savior films are told from white characters' perspectives, oftentimes marginalizing diverse points of view. Next, these characters are initially unaware of societal or structural racism and eventually develop into anti-racist heroes by saving African American characters. Third, central to the white savior's journey is the process of growing into an advocate while battling white racists. Finally, in what some deem to be a post-racial America, white savior films demonstrate that it is possible for white people to be colorblind.
Though there are many sports-related films that illustrate the white savior trope, for our purposes, we're using The Blind Side by John Lee Hancock. This film is based on the true story of how Michael Oher became a professional American football player. However, the film is centered on the wealthy white woman who saved him, Leanne Toohey, played here by Sandra Bullock. Leanne encounters Michael, a homeless black teenager, and adopts him. Though her family supports Michael by teaching him to read and to achieve at school, as is common in many white savior films, the main character, Leanne, also faces racist criticism from her friends in the community. Still, Leanne forges ahead, paying for tutors and eventually meeting with college football recruiters on Michael's behalf. Ultimately, Michael overcomes his background, including his drug-addicted mother, absent father, and ghetto surroundings, attends college on a football scholarship, and is later drafted by a professional American football team. From the movie's point of view, Leanne is the reason for Michael's success. However, teachers can counter the white savior trope with three approaches: the media literacy approach, the comparative approach, and the historical approach.
A media literacy approach should focus on production. Recreating scenes is one way to center instruction on creating media, but only after learning about and comparing Orr's real-life story with the film version. Asking the following questions can guide students' learning. For example, how might the current scene be revised? What characters, setting, film angles, or shots would be used? Should there be an additional scene? If so, then who or what would be the focus? A comparative approach can deepen students' understanding of the widespread impact of a single story, such as the white savior trope, across multiple films. Film selection should include varied genres focusing on different decades and stories to illustrate how a similar theme, told across time, can shape perspectives about racial interactions. An historical approach is to provide counter-narratives to the white savior trope by examining films or readings that accurately illustrate this era. The following questions can guide students' learning. How does the white savior trope undermine what occurred during the American Civil Rights Movement? In a post-civil rights era, who benefits from the messages in white savior films? What messages about structural inequality are absent from white savior films?
Teachers interested in learning more about teaching for social justice using sports-related films and other texts should note that additional resources are available. Developing Contemporary Literacies Through Sports, a guide for the English classroom, is an edited collection published in 2016 by the National Council of Teachers of English. The book includes adaptable lesson plans and essays from scholars that support taking a critical approach to sports-related texts. Stories of Sports, Critical Literacy in Media Production, Consumption, and Dissemination is an edited collection published in 2021 by Lexington Books. This resource includes chapters that promote teaching for critical media literacy and demonstrate how sports stories support and subvert power relations. Bringing Sports Culture to the English Classroom, an interest-driven approach to literacy instruction, is a book published in 2022 by Teachers College Press. This resource draws from classroom research to present practical ideas that can aid teachers in fostering critical readings of sports culture and related texts. Resources like these can help teachers use sports culture to teach for social justice.